You're listening to the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and it's time for this week's Long Island News, the show that talks to newsmakers and other important people from Nassau and Suffolk County that matter to Long Island and Long Islanders like you. So each week we'll have a conversation about issues that affect all of us. I live on Long Island just like you, and I want to know more about the people making the big decisions that affect all of us. Well, this week, we're going to continue our conversations with those individuals that have already declared that they're running for Congress in New York's hotly contested 3rd District, which is the seat currently held by George Santos. My guest today is Mr. Kellen Curry, who has declared himself a Republican candidate in the 2024 election in that same 3rd District. Well, Mr. Curry, welcome to this week's Long Island News.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I appreciate this.
Good. I'm glad. And I know you're busy. I can't even imagine campaigning, and you just have to remember to put the time you need to sleep on your calendar.
That's right. Sleep and eat and everything else. Yeah. So, it all kind of runs together some days, but we're having fun and picking up good support. So it's good stuff.
Glad to hear. So first up, maybe tell us a little bit about yourself and your background, and considering the seat that you're going to take, remember they're probably going to check everything you say to make sure that, you know what I mean? Which is what but in general, people did not do last time.
Absolutely. And I'll tell you, I think that's one of the silver linings of this whole kind of situation is that people are digging in. They want to know the candidates. They want to know where we stand on the issues. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing for the citizenry to be engaged in this way. And so, I'm okay with the extra vetting, in this kind of, environment. So it's all good. But a little bit about me. I'm a 3rd generation veteran. Mom and dad were public servants. Dad wore, the uniform of our country. He was a naval officer. Mom is a decades-long federal civil servant at Tinker Air Force Base, which I grew up right outside of in Oklahoma City. And then it was always easy and natural for me to want to have my own story of service. And so I had the opportunity to go to the Air Force Academy and enjoyed that experience and served 8 years in the United States Air Force, 2 tours of duty in Afghanistan, helping built that country the best that we could. And then I bought weapon systems for the Air Force, cybersecurity type weapon systems. And I did that for 8 years, left and went to business school, and then came to New York about 4 years ago working in finance. And I've been here ever since. My story is very quintessential New York. I'm here by choice and not by birth, because this is a great place to live and to work and experience life.
Well, you've got quite a list of things there. I mean, looking at you, how old are you?
I am 37.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, people tell me I don't look my age, and that's like a big compliment, at my age.
Yeah.
You come across to me, you look about 25.
Well, I'm 37 and a half, I guess I should say.
Wow.
Yeah. So January 1st is my birthday. So, New Year's baby. But
New Year's baby. Yeah. Were you? Oh, so you were like 5 minutes after midnight?
That's right. Yeah.
And your folks didn't get the tax deduction for that previous year.
They probably tried. I don't know if they did.
Yeah. I have a friend like that. He was born, I think, 5 minutes after midnight on, New Year's Day.
Wow.
So his dad was kind of upset that year. But
very cool.
Okay, well, since we've already brought him up, what's your opinion of George Santos and the stories that have come out about him since he won the election in 2022?
Well, I think it's an unfortunate situation. It's just actually this week in media reports, we learned about, the poor state of constituency services that are just not being done by his office. And I think it just highlights what we all kind of think and know about Mr. Santos, is that we can and do deserve better. We deserve better leadership, and that's why I'm in this race. I think the country deserves the best leadership that we can provide, and right now we're not getting that. And so much of this campaign is about kitchen table issues, nuts and bolts, achieving the gold standard of constituency services, and having a voice on national security and economic security and all the rest.
Yeah, I think one of the things that came up, and it was glaring, was that there, depending on if he is convicted of a crime, and depending on what kind of crime it is, there is actually an avenue there someplace where he could be in a jail cell and still acting as a congressman. that kind of blew everybody away, that we have nothing in place that would automatically trigger his expulsion just for the things he's already done.
Yes, absolutely. I think right now there's a censure resolution moving through the House, but like you said, that's, that wouldn't expel him at this point. I think, from the House representative perspective, they will only do it if he's convicted. So we'll see how fast that process moves. But yeah, we could end up in a scenario where, he's there and perhaps in a jail cell. So,
yeah.
It's an unfortunate situation. But at some point, he's gonna be gone, and we're gonna have a new representative. And so when I go out and talk to people, they're looking forward to that day. They want to engage me on the issues of the day, about what I think and believe about how we can move the interest of our district forward.
Yeah. Well, I think in so many different departments, and definitely in government, this whole idea of oversight. Do you think that a thing like the Santos situation will be rectified through legislation?
Oh, we have to. I think whoever wins this race needs to champion, ethics reform, needs to champion a way in which, and some people have already introduced pieces of legislation here from the New York delegation about how to hold, folks responsible for, kind of ethics in campaigning.
Yeah. Well, sadly, some members in Congress have also introduced legislation to kind of gut the teeth from the Oversight Committee.
Yeah.
We want to have it, but we don't want it to be able to do anything. Just the idea that we kind of all know why Santos is still there. The balance between Republicans and Democrats in Congress is minimal. I mean, there's 2 or 3 votes, I think, that would make a difference. And the Speaker of the House needs that vote. So it's purely a political thing that he's there. There's no merit to anything he's doing. There's, none of those good things to say this is why we're keeping him.
Right.
The only reason they're keeping him is to hang on to that bit of power. That's kind of sad.
Yeah.
I mean, you don't, well, anyway, in full disclosure, now you sent us a list of topics that we asked for, and we hope you'll tell us where you stand on these issues. But after talking about Santos, we did speak about ethics, and you basically say, yeah, we got to do something about it.
We should. And you're right. The Office of Congressional Ethics has been, somewhat detoothed over the last few terms. And so there are some things that we can do to make sure that it has, relevancy, and that it has a force and power, and is able to, has the power of subpoena, or has the power, is a standing committee, permanent standing committee, and things like that. So to make sure that it's a fixture, and that it can't be something that, that is kind of undone for every single congressional, session. So absolutely.
Right. Yeah. And I think in the atmosphere, people would be afraid to set up an ethics committee if they thought it was going to be weaponized, like most other things are, because of the friction we have between, the divided country and that kind of idea. So nobody's willing to say, yeah, let's set up an ethics committee, because they're all afraid that it would be balanced toward the other side.
Yeah. I think so much of that sentiment is in the moment. I think once we get past kind of this, unfortunate era of, this political season where we're have all these investigations, whether it's, the Biden, Hunter Biden, or whether it's on the other side with Donald Trump. I feel like once we can kind of flush, some of this out of the system, we can get back to a place where, we have more respect and reverence for, our law enforcement, our, investigative bodies and their process to do the work of investigating these issues. So I'm hopeful for that day, and I look forward to being a leader and someone who can, give these, processes time to play out.
Mm-hmm. Well, I just had a vision in my head that you're really walking into the storm.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. So national security is the next topic. What would you propose to do differently, or just how do you feel about it?
Yeah. One thing, a lot of people asking about on the campaign trail is kind of our relationship with China. Obviously, that's been in the news. I think there's probably, 3 things that we've got to do in terms of addressing our challenge, with China and foreign policy more broadly. I think, first and foremost, we have to lean more into our alliances. It's good to see, one thing I will, say about, this administration is that the administration has taken seriously our alliance with NATO and, making sure that, that NATO is a organization that, has power, has relevancy. So that's good to see on the global stage. I think, the second thing we have to do is modernize the military. So right here, in our district, we have the Merchant Marine Academy. And so, I've been there. I've talked with the alumni and they're excited about our campaign. I think one thing that we all recognize is that we have to rebuild the campus. And we need a big infrastructure package to do that. And I look forward to championing that, in Congress. I think the third thing we have to do is we have to look at the all voluntary military force, right now. Right now we have a recruiting shortage amongst all the services, and it's the trend lines are not positive. So that 18 to 24-year-old age group are not joining up as much as previous generations, and so we have to think about ways in which we can affirmatively engage that age group to make sure we meet our recruiting goals. And one idea I have is to look more seriously at a potential national year of service, for the entire country. This has been done in other countries. And so, look, I think it's something that would unite the American people. I think it's something that would be good for, young people to engage in, not just military service, but, service more broadly. So, yeah.
You're listening to this week's Long Island News on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and my guest today is Mr. Kellen Curry, a declared candidate on the Republican ticket in 2024 for New York's 3rd Congressional District, the seat currently held by George Santos. You were in the weapons business there or for a little while. How's AI going to affect all that? Are we going to need as many boots on the ground as was traditional, or are there guys sitting in a little room playing what appears to be a video game and pressing buttons?
Yeah, I mean, that will certainly be, part of how we fight in the future. Right now, the American military, already fights in a very complex way, just because we fight in a very layered way with air power and land forces and sea power. And I think, information or, AI is just going to be another layer, but I don't think you're going to get away from some of the traditional ways in which we fight that have been successful.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm. Well, AI is already changing our lives.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And it has its, every science fiction writer in the world has written a scenario where, AI comes into being and all of a sudden wants to drive the bus.
Yeah. It's, I think the biggest thing about AI is its impact on the job market. That's what concerns me. So, I'm not sure if I personally think we should have not allowed these, ChatGPT and these different AI models to be open source so soon before we kind of had a handle on, how pervasive they would be and how they might impact, jobs. I mean, people got to work, so at the end of the day, but, it's a brave new world. For sure.
Yeah. Well, a lot of people feel we've opened Pandora's box.
Exactly.
And there is really no way to go back.
Yeah, no.
Now that it's here,
I don't think we understand it enough, right now.
Mm-hmm.
So,
well, what's interesting is historically, when you look at people who've invented things, from what I've been reading just along my whole life, I guess, is the idea that most of them have been totally incorrect about what their invention would be used for.
Yeah,
so they had an intention. And they put it on the table, and when they walked away and came back, it was being used for something totally different that never even crossed their minds. That, I think, is a scary implication.
Absolutely.
Because we haven't even thought of the thing, that somebody could use those tools for.
Yeah.
So now economy and jobs, things, are looking a bit better in terms of jobs reports and inflation. What are you hoping to do differently?
Yeah, jobs or inflation has come down, and that's a good thing. I think that's one of the benefits of divided government. I think, the House of Representatives being controlled by the Republicans and their ability to vocally, bring the administration to the table in terms of spending on the debt package. It was a good thing that the debt ceiling passed, so that the economy didn't go into default. But
we kind of realized here a lot of that was theater. It's in the Constitution that you can't not pay your bills.
Yeah.
So when push came to shove, I think all of that chatter back and forth was for our benefit and the media.
Yeah, well, I think having the fight has a residual and intangible benefit, at least of putting the administration on notice that there is a force, in the other branch of government that's not going to go along with more spending. And so that's kind of how
in this case, that force is only about 10 people.
Yeah, very thin.
This is the tail is wagging the dog in Congress.
Very thin, but nonetheless, I think it does send a good signal to the market that spending is not going to go out of control, that, the administration is going to take seriously, the budgets that they submit. So I think all that has an impact on the financial markets, and that allows, prices to come down. I think it gives people, operators across the economy, confidence that they can, ease, price inflation in their own kind of businesses and inputs, so to speak.
I think there are so many people on the, that live in America, let's say, who really don't care if the stock market went up or down because they don't have a horse in the race. There's just no way they're ever going to get into the stock market. I don't care if the Standard & Poor's crashes and burns tomorrow. Well, they really shouldn't say that because the residual effects will definitely affect them. But they're concerned about going to the grocery store.
Yeah.
And, when we had the egg supply shortage, what was the big topic of conversation was how much a dozen eggs were.
That's right.
And that they were treated like gold, know. So those are the things.
Yeah, no, you're right. I mean, I do think that, everybody, even if you don't have individual stocks, if you have a 401k, if you have an IRA, if you have a pension, that pension fund is invested into the market.
But I know people who have none of those.
Yeah, right.
Which speaks more to the economic viability of the whole society.
Absolutely.
When a whole slew of people can stand up and say, no, I don't have an IRA. I don't have a pension plan. I don't have a this. I don't have a that. How are those people not being served by all of these conversations about these high finance things?
Yeah. Well, and that's the next layer, right? Some people have those things. Some people have, a lot of stocks. Some people don't, but they're still tied into it indirectly. And then some people not at all. But wherever you are on the income ladder, we all have to go to the grocery store, like you're saying, right? And buy, eggs and things like that. And so the cost of living, particularly here on Long Island, is an issue. I mean, from housing to
Long Island Cares has fed more people in the last year, I think, than they've fed in the last 10.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's indicative of people not being able to meet that monetary standard of going to the grocery store.
Absolutely.
You get 2 items. I used to get 10.
Wow. Okay.
Now I get 2, and what do? They go to Long Island Cares, which, this is one of the things that always irked me. People pay a lot of money in taxes around here, and then you drive around a road and it says, this road taken care of by a volunteer. And we sit and look at that sign and say, well, where the heck is the highway department? Where are the people that were hired to go out and actually keep these things clean? You got to ask a company down the road to do that.
Yeah.
It's kind of insult to injury.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another thing I want to ask you about is, and this has always been a conversation, school taxes.
Okay.
There are so many residents on Long Island who haven't had kids in school for 60 years. When do they get some sort of relief? See, I think that the method here is, it's always been said, you make your money in New York and you spend it someplace else. So people come here, they work their whole lives, they build up equity in their house, they sell it, and they move to usually Florida, or someplace else.
That's right.
If it's at all possible that their school taxes could be abated a little bit, they may actually be able to stay. And would want to. Most of them have families here. So rather than spend the money taking plane trips back and forth every 3 months to see their relatives, they could stay where they grew up. And but I don't see that that's ever really going to be.
No, I mean, I think it's a more complicated problem because we don't have enough housing at different tiers. You know what I mean? We don't have enough multifamily housing. We don't have enough housing that, those people that are in those homes that have built up equity can, sell, downsize, and then like the next generation kind of come in that do have kids, it would make more sense for them to be in that house because they got a growing family and they got to, they're paying taxes for the school system. Mm-hmm. So, I think and then of course, right now, of course, with interest rates, a lot of folks don't want to sell because there's nowhere else to go. If they go somewhere else, then they'll have to pay a higher rate. But to your point, I think it's more of a layered problem. I certainly, I'm not running at the local level, but certainly, that is certainly an issue. And I think, I think Newsday had a good report, a few weeks ago about the population in Long Island, continuing to slowly decline. And so, we have to take seriously these issues.
It's been this way for a long time. So, the appearance, the optics are, nobody really wants to change it. This is working for somebody. And it could be real estate, the turnover of houses. If the older people stayed here, they wouldn't be selling as many houses. And, you may not have that volatility, I guess, in the real estate market. But I don't know. I that's just one of those things that it's been that way my whole life, and I don't expect it to change by the time I leave here either. You've been listening to this week's Long Island News on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. My name is Bill McIntyre, and my guest today is Mr. Kellen Curry, a declared candidate on the Republican ticket in 2024 for New York's 3rd Congressional District, the seat currently held by George Santos. Yeah, so, that was my next topic, actually, here, Long Island affordability. Is there something concrete that you could look at that you could say, okay, I'm going to start here?
Yeah. Well, right now, the New York delegation, in the House is certainly concentrated on ending the SALT cap deduction. They talk a lot lot about that. And so,
well, we'll thank Donald Trump for that one.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
We don't want to forget that.
Yeah. A New Yorker kind of did that to New York.
No, but see, this is the thing it's the punitive nature. All the PPP loans for companies when they got they were all forgiven. But when student debt came up on the plate, oh no.
Yeah.
And this optic is continual. If it's something for people, no.
Yeah.
If it's something either for a large corporation, I want to go back to the days where corporations are taxed at 35, 40%, because they will then spend their money on tax-deductible research and development, infrastructure, things we could all use to get that tax benefit, instead of Republicans and Democrats passing bills that just gives them tax breaks so that more money goes to the top.
Yeah.
I mean, I think of the guy in the supermarket. He's looking at his 10 items and he's only taking 2. Yeah. And a CEO is taking home $25 million a year and complaining that a writer, a songwriter makes too much money.
Yeah. I mean, it's, at this point, the CEO pay, like you were mentioning. I mean, it's just the disparity is troubling. I think when you talk about taxation and corporates, I mean, I think it's in the low 20s right now. But
I don't even know if it's there.
Yeah.
I don't even know if the number's that big. Because I think they'd be screaming if it was that big.
Well, statutorily, I mean, they do other things to kind of make it the effective rate a lot lower. But I think some of that made them more competitive globally. But certainly the whole trickle down theory doesn't work, and I think we know that right at this point. So,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right. So we talked about SALT, and we had Tom Swazi here, and that was his big battle cry when he said no SALT, no deal. When they were talking about, I forgot what the thing that was on the table, but he said no SALT, no deal, and he couldn't get it done.
Yeah. I think it's one of those issues that's going to be, kind of a strength in numbers. So to the extent that we can get, the New York, the California, New Jersey delegations, on the same page, and other delegations, that are impacted by this more acutely.
I think this feeds the flea.
Yeah. For sure. And cynically, I think that was, some people said that was kind of part of why they did it. So, to get more people to go to red states and all that stuff. So
yeah. Well, that's a whole nother imbalance on the national level. That's, red states are yelling at blue states, and blue states are footing the bill.
Yeah.
So, don't poke the bear too much.
That's right. Yeah, we contribute a lot to the nation's economy for sure. So,
I think we're keeping many of those other states afloat.
Yeah.
And you can look at them now and automatically know, okay, it's a poor state. If the money stopped flowing, I can't imagine what they would look like.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, for sure.
You mentioned the Merchant Marine Academy. That was good. All right. Anyway, the presidential races are heating up. Now, you're a registered Republican. Who are you voting for?
Well, I haven't made any decisions yet. I think we're still early in the process. And so I look forward to watching these candidates get out and cast their vision, for where they want to move the country. And we got some new faces out there. So I think it's good. I think it's good that we have a good, healthy debate. I think it's good that we have fresh voices rise and articulate, what it is that's on their mind and why they're in the race. There's some, obviously, Donald Trump is the 800-pound gorilla in the race. I'll tell you this. I think, as far as the presidential race is concerned, so much, I think, in the back of people's minds are probably all the court cases and whether or not, the indictments and, the multitude of the indictments in nominating someone that has so many indictments against them, whether or not it can even be feasible. But
this is another illustration of the Santos thing. We have no laws on the books that say a president should be kicked out of office. We are not, I won't even say beholden, but we're hoping that the good sense of our Congress would deal with a situation like this. But they haven't. And the optics tell us that they probably won't. So, again, we need a concrete law that says if A happens, B has to automatically go into effect.
Yeah. Until that point, we have the American people, and they're gonna go and decide. And that's
where my hope lies.
And obviously, we'll see how it plays out. It's still pretty early, but
Well, you have the microphone for a minute, and your constituency hopefully is listening or will listen. What do you want to tell them?
Yeah, well, what I want to say is first and foremost, thank you so much. We've been out, for a little over 3 months now, and we've gotten just a tremendous amount of support across the community, across the country, really. So people are really thirsty for and hungry for honest leadership, for someone that has a track record of service. I've done it in the military. I've done it in government, did it at JP Morgan, did it in youth organizations that I've served in across the country. And so I look forward to doing it here and serving again in this way. It's just a tremendous, opportunity to connect with individuals and with constituents. And so I'm really enjoying the experience, and I encourage everyone to go to kellencurry.com to learn more about our campaign.
I hope the campaign doesn't, age you. Let me put it that way.
Well, I hope not. We're still early. It's a long way. I mean, think about, we started in April. So, election's not till November 2024,
My guest today has been Mr. Kellen Curry, a declared candidate on the Republican ticket in 2024 from New York's 3rd Congressional District. And again, we want to thank him for taking the time to be here. I know he's got plenty of things to do, but the clock on the wall says it's time for this week's Long Island News to get on out of here. I'm Bill McIntyre, and remember, you can listen to us by searching for this week's Long Island News wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're right here every Friday on the radio at 3 p.m. on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC.